Tokusan is not going to get angry at Seppo. It's just not worth it. Seppo doesn't understand enough about what he's doing for Tokusan's anger to do anything for him, or his disappointment. Ganto, on the other hand, is a senior person who is supposed to understand. So when he doesn't, Tokusan will take time to point something out to him. So Ganto comes in and Tokusan says to me, "I understand you don't approve of me." That's what he says. And at that point, Ganto comes over to him and whispers something in Tokusan's ear. Tokusan shakes his head, satisfied, and Ganto leaves. Now, again, when you do this koan, the next question will be, what did Ganto say? Now, how can you know that? Huh? Well, let's struggle. But you can. Anyway, the koan then ends with the next day, and it is the day that Tokusan gives a talk. Once a week he gives a talk. And he comes out and he gives a talk that's completely different than the way he usually teaches things. You know, it's if I came out and I just completely said something completely different and in a completely different style. And while he does, Ganto stands up, claps his hands, and says, "The old man has finally gotten the last word of Zen." And that's the end of the koan. And you can imagine Seppo kind of going, "What happened?" But this was all play for Seppo's education. Now, the reason that I went through these stages with Tokusan, what I want you to get is how Tokusan is acting now in the third stage of his life, in his maturity. And the word usually used is that he's ripe at this point. And that is, it doesn't bother Tokusan at all to switch positions. He can be right, he can be wrong, he can be the big shot in the monastery, he cannot be, he can teach this way, he can teach that way. And so we have this model of the development of a practitioner from a completely intellectual understanding and stubbornness to enlightenment, but fierce rightness, to the last phase, which is subtle, flexible, and not full of rightness. And that's what the model of Tokusan's life can teach us. And we don't have that model hardly anywhere of a Zen teacher's life anyway, of that full development. And since none of us is 80 yet, it would be good to kind of get that before we get 80, because when we're younger, we really do think we have perhaps the whole lineage starting with John Wayne to Bruce Willis to believe that the real model of heroic behavior is rightism and making others wrong. And Tokusan here is putting forth a whole new model, and his behavior is nourishing and flexible, and he's not stuck anywhere.